Mutiny. This mutiny isn't your fault. Scheme. This short glass of scheme milk here? Route. This tale is done. And God save all the route. Instantly. This video is being instantly uploaded to YouTube. Madden. This whole thing is maddening. Engaging. This work has been surprisingly engaging. Specimen. Those are the cadaver brain specimens. Acrobat. Those Chinese acrobats in Cirque du Soleil. Categorically. Though I cannot state categorically that my life. Levy. Threat you might levy. Rhetorical strategy. Entrepreneurial. Through entrepreneurial brilliance and innovation, distinguish. Thus distinguishing him from those she calls sweetie. Opponent. Thus intimidating one's opponent. Touchdown. Till touchdown brings me round again to find. Windmill. Tilting at that particular windmill. Stockbroker. Tired from your labors as a stockbroker. Authoritarian. To a 3,000-year-old authoritarian tradition. Onboard. To a faulty pin on the onboard communication chip. Bereft. To a man who is bereft of ostrich. Oppress. To a weapons system that oppresses mankind. Accumulation. To accommodate the increased accumulation of dead skin cells. Amend. To amend the words of I. Toy Story. I. Folly. To an evening-long festival of fun and folly. Innermost. To answer awkward questions about your innermost feelings. Conserve. To avoid loss of yardage or to conserve time. Loathsome. To being betrayed by a loathsome son of a bitch. Compress. To compress 20 micrograms of gold into a small enough volume. Microgram. To compress 20 micrograms of gold into a small enough volume. Covert. To covert your footsteps into electromagnetic energy. Electromagnetic. To covert your footsteps into electromagnetic energy. Spacious. To crawl back into her spacious womb. Terminal. To cushion the blow of a terminal diagnosis. Configuration. To dealing with me in this configuration. Remorse. To demonstrate the remorse I feel is imperfect. To describe an imperfect world. Dissolve. To dissolve the bonds that tie three competent scientists together. Competent. To dissolve the bonds that tie three competent scientists together. Dredge. To dredge stuff up from the past and fight about it. Populace. To educating the general populace. Unworthy. To eliminate unworthy candidates. Vicissitude. To endure the vicissitudes of the world. Evade. To evade the omega baryon constraints. Constrained. To evade the omega baryon constraints. Mourning. To facilitate mourning. Wean. To fight my addiction is by weaning myself off in steps. Snare. To finally snare best group costume. Ingratiate. To ingratiate himself to me. Haul. To just haul off and hoop the crazy out of him. Justifiable. To justifiable ridicule for wearing them. Intercontinental. To keep this intercontinental relationship alive. Reign. To Leonard and his reign of tyranny. Tyranny. To Leonard and his reign of tyranny. Informed. To make an informed choice. Comrade. To male comrades before women who sell their bodies for money. Stately. To my stately manor outside Gotham City. Anne. Negotiate. To negotiate a temporary truce. Truce. To negotiate a temporary truce. Ostracize. To ostracize ill-mannered members of the troupe. Frank. To play Anne Frank. Prompt. To prompt an emotional response. And we'll see. Quell. To quell the rage in my heart. Alleyway. To ravish me in the alleyway while I eat cheesecake. Rehabilitate. To rehabilitate prisoners. Metabolic. To remove the metabolic byproducts of the day's thoughts. Soulless. To romantically bond with a soulless machine. Ladybug. To see if there was a ladybug in it. Clairvoyance. To support clairvoyance of any kind. Almighty. To the almighty dollar. Exclusion. To the exclusion of your own feelings. Distal. to the higher level distal cause. Filing, to the proper authorities for filing. Blaze, to this blazing fire that is myself. Tout, to tout your modest accomplishment. Ailment, to treat your imaginary ailments. Pillar, to turn my wife into a pillar of salt. Mainframe, to use the mainframe in Buckman 204. Tremendously, to work with you on your tremendously exciting. Hereditary, to worry about death by badgers being hereditary. Vagina, to your daughter's vagina. Enhanced, together, in this car, with my enhanced capabilities. Carousel, took it off the carousel by mistake. Transitional, transitional quadrilateral to triangular tessellation. Quadrilateral, transitional quadrilateral to triangular tessellation. Translation, translation, dab, try a dab of this. Ogle, try not to ogle my caboose as I walk away. Bayonet, tuned bayonets. BBC, turned on BBC America, and watched Doctor Who. Unusually, turns out I have an unusually firm cervix. 12th century code of chivalry? Chivalry, 12th century code of chivalry? Filmmaker, two of the most gifted filmmakers of our generation. Passport. 2. Legally leave Guatemala without a passport. Bureaucratic. Typical bureaucratic nonsense. Lore. Despite popular lore, there is no place. Fleece. I have fleece-lined boxer shorts. Orient. I've been stalking more female-oriented titles. Displease. It means if anyone displeases me. Summary. It's basically a summary of the theory. Blot. My answers to the standard Rorschach ink blot test are: weed. Prospective women weed themselves out. Unidentified. Unidentified flying liverwurst. Carpentry. Weather. Fish you could do carpentry with. Enchantment. Yeah, I think it's the enchantment. Rocky. You know, it started a little rocky. Vineyard. You travel through the vineyards. Aftershock. Hypothetical aftershock. Schemer. Wish we had a schemer. Unaware. Unaware that a vengeful horde. Appoint. Under my authority as a self-appointed member. Supervision. Under the careful supervision of her godfather. Where? Under the sink. Yellow Tupperware bowl. Genus. Underneath. Identifying the genus and species. Universality. Understandable, but there's a universality to that story which transcends ethnicity. Protoplasm. Undifferentiated protoplasm. Visibly. Uninvited and visibly sweaty. Decelerate. Unless Superman matches her speed and decelerates. Unskilled. Unskilled food servers such as yourself obsolete. Viability. Until our relationship is past the initial viability test. Oncoming. Until she's ready to drive into oncoming traffic. Exuberant. USA Today calls them exuberant fun for the whole family. Encode. Used to encode data on hard disk drives. Ethnic. Using ethnic humor. Veiled. Usually in an attempt to soften a thinly veiled insult. Vigorously. Vigorously? Virile. Virile visitor from a foreign land. Brimstone. W. Where's the fire and brimstone? Pinpoint. W. So you're attempting to pinpoint. Discriminate. Wait. Are you saying that he discriminated against you? Resurrection. Wait. Doesn't anyone have a rod of resurrection? Anthrax. Waiting for a rat to die of anthrax. Matinee. Wanna take in a matinee. Intestinal. Want to nip intestinal polyps in the bud. Polyp. Want to nip intestinal polyps in the bud. Wary. Wary distance from each other. Uninformed. Was frustratingly uninformed on the subject. Inscribe. Was inscribed with the phrase, "This too shall pass." Platitude. Was that just a generic platitude? Resultant. Was that the resultant device be bitchin'? Repute. Wasn't Mary Magdalene a woman of ill repute? Foreground. Wasn't so much in the foreground. Implode. Watching my parents' marriage implode. Broomstick. Watching your boyfriend run around with a broomstick. Nymph. Water nymph. Crossroad. We appear to be at a crossroads in our relationship. Mother. Fortress. We are about to enter Exodus Fortress. Cog. We are on the precipice of becoming faceless cogs. Fury. We are winged fury. Ferromagnetic. We calculate ferromagnetic hysteresis. Airbnb. We can Airbnb it to other people's babies. Sumo. We can do arm, thumb, mud, sumo. 40. 43. Rejoice. We can rejoice in the knowledge. Nomenclature. We clarified nomenclature together. Utilize. We could utilize quantum coupling. Extenuate. We did, but there were extenuating circumstances. Australian. We found a place that has Australian male strippers. Paris. We go to Paris with Carrie and get our heart broken. Manger. We had a tree. We had a manger. Inflatable. We had an inflatable Santa Claus. Anatomy. We had some pretty hot corpses in my anatomy class. Gymnasium. We have a fully equipped gymnasium. League. We have chicken, tortilla and potato league. Typhoid. We have no idea what pathogen typhoid. Protector. We have seat protectors. Booties for my shoes. Interrelated. We have to concede her undeniable expertise in the interrelated fields. Procrastinate. We keep procrastinating. Shackle. We men need to break free from the shackles of civility. Civility. We men need to break free from the shackles of civility. Catalyst. We need a social catalyst. Subtract. We need to subtract your morale rating. Elasticity. We need to use elasticity theory. Promptly. We pay the prostitutes promptly. Unqualified. We then eliminate those unqualified. Infectious. We used to, but a couple guys in the infectious disease lab. Kindle. We were going to throw his Kindle outside. Firstborn. We will name our firstborn son Howard. Commercially. We'll never be able to sell it commercially. Nostalgic. We'll remember you with nostalgic fondness. Immense. We're all part of an immense pattern. Fragrant. We're no strangers to the fragrant armpit. Encouraging. We're not encouraging. Unjust. We're obligated to obey all laws, even unjust ones. Inaugural. We're playing our inaugural round of Wild West and Witches. Untested. We're talking about untested hypotheses. Bicker. We've been bickering like my parents used to. Workable. We've got a workable guidance system. Assassin. We've got one assassin. 3 spellcasters and no tank. Ashtray. We were both drunk, and she smelled like an ashtray. Weaken. Weakened the structural integrity of the bag. Ensign. Wearing a Star Trek ensign's uniform. Jumpsuit. Wearing my NASA jumpsuit as a costume. Cadet. Wearing my Starfleet Academy cadet uniform. Penthouse. Welcome to the Penthouse Forum. Sequential. Well, comic books employ storytelling through sequential art. Crochet. Well, except for the fact that I crocheted this myself. Offender. Well, good thing I was a nonviolent offender. Cunning. Well, he's even more cunning than we thought. Torso. Well, her torso is. Generously. Well, I believe I'm treating you generously. Handbag. Well, I can't spend $12,000 on a handbag. Waddle. Well, I didn't make you waddle up. Cheaply. Well, I don't sell my friendship that cheaply. Earbud. Well, I heard Ira Glass, so he's either in your earbuds. Tryout. Well, I was going to, but the day of tryouts. Kidnapping. Well, I'd hardly call this kidnapping. Hash. Well, I'm glad that we hashed all that out. Enclose. Well, ideally, an enclosed invader. Well, if it's a home invader. Factual. Well, if you like dry, factual statements. Hasty. Well, let's not be hasty. Continuum. Well, my existence is a continuum. Pique. Well, now that I've piqued your interest. Commanding. Well, she's still pulling a commanding lead. Going. Well, since Amy's going, do you want me there? Snooze. Well, that seems like a snooze. Tonsil. Well, there was the time I had my tonsils out. Truthfully. Well, truthfully, I've never given it any thought. Installment. Well, what if I ask for it in 6 easy installments? Happening. Well, you don't have to worry about sex happening tonight. Iris. Well, you have a brown fleck in your right iris. Regularity. Well, I assume you're not referring to digestive regularity. Poppy. Well, I did have a poppy seed bagel for breakfast. Newcomer. Well, it seems that the newcomer approaches the existing group with the greeting. Exaggeration. Well, that may be a slight exaggeration. Responsive. Well, that was a little non-responsive. Provoke. Well, that's certainly a thought-provoking hypothesis. Proficiency. Well, the key to acquiring proficiency in any task is repetition. Futility. Well, this entire endeavor seems to have been an exercise in futility. Dolly. Well, we don't have a dolly. Glorify. Well, you did call him a glorified high school science teacher. Entwine. We're entwined like erotic taffy. Cabbage. We're evolved by the cabbage family. Coil. We're talking about going to see the Tesla coil. Whale. Whales have their songs. Grouch. What a grouch. Puss. What a puss. Workforce. What about the living organism of the workforce? Coddle. What about you coddling him and he's never gonna learn? Impulsive. I'm a passionate and impulsive woman. Hardball. They played hardball. Circumference. What is the circumference of your areolas? Recovery. What is your preferred mode of recovery? Cacophonous. What it is a cacophonous assault. Inverse. What part of inverse tangent function approaching an asymptote did you not understand? Recruit. What rat have you recruited to the SS? Preen. What self-important, preening fraud are they honoring this year? Pap. What started as a pap smear turned into a date? Avenge. What your superhero name will be when you avenge their deaths? Crucial. What's crucial for a salon? Dweller. What's going on? Day dwellers. Bonnet. What's the line from Firefly about your bonnet? Rectangular. What's the only non-rectangular flag? Alphabet. What? The alphabet. Exhibition. When a female witnesses an exhibition of physical domination. Domination. When a female witnesses an exhibition of physical domination. Tracing. When Amy first told you about her approach to synaptic tracing. Roadway. When are roadways most slippery? Renovation. When he came to check out your bathroom renovation. Prodigy. When I entered the field of string theory, I was a prodigy. Pernicious. When I had pernicious anemia. Anemia. When I had pernicious anemia. Podium. When I walked up to the podium and looked out at the crowd. Ingest. When I was 5, I ingested a Z-gauge locomotive. Comatose. When I'm lying comatose in a hospital. Hunting. When I'm not crossbow hunting, I spearfish. Loudly. When Penny got food poisoning, she threw up so loudly. Mar. When the Mars rover started pulling to the left, I performed. Slither. When the serpent slithers to an opposing player's piece. Epidemic. When there was a lice epidemic at my school. Luxury. When war breaks out, no one can afford the luxury of a rhino. Pulsate. When we consider the brightness of pulsating variable stars. Audit. When we get audited. Disembody. When we're disembodied brains in jars. Multinational, when you can support a multinational conglomerate. Conglomerate, when you can support a multinational conglomerate. Spectre, when you remove the specter of fiery vehicular death. Spruce, when you said you wanted to spruce up the place. Firefly, when you were on TV in Firefly, you were actually in space. Endanger, where a human being would have been endangered. Punishable, where he comes from, that's punishable by death. Exquisitely, where mine is exquisitely convoluted. Convoluted, where mine is exquisitely convoluted. Ganglion, where my basal ganglia are occupied with a routine task. Pebble, where one is a pebble in your shoe. Faction, where society had splintered into the two factions. Slim, where the chances of survival are slim to none. Laborer, where the noble semi-skilled laborers. Luminary, where we invite as many academic luminaries as we can. Dipper, where you have the Big Dipper, we have the big curry pot. Ransom, where's the part where you call me and demand ransom? Hunter, where, when a hunter flaunts his success. Copious, whereas Leonard produces copious amounts of methane. Dropout, whereas you, on the other hand, are a community college dropout. Whereby a person accepts whatever available option is satisfactory. Wraith, which are only effective against wraiths and daywalkers. Unborn, which can all be harmful to an unborn baby. Entirety, which I've never viewed in its entirety. Indoctrinate, which indoctrinates them with all the social graces. Dander, which is a very sexy quality to those troubled by animal dander. Inward, which is an inward force generated by the glass acting on the olive. Fortuitous, which is fortuitous. Palsy, which is ironic, because if you had Fowler's palsy. Chorus, which is met with an approving chorus of dude. Slouch, which means he's no slouch at holding his breath. Shrubbery, which of your shrubberies do you feel abhorrent, which others find abhorrent or rage-inducing. Outline, which outline our various duties and the path we will follow. Preclude, which precludes her from physical contact. Rearrange, which rearranged the drivers and cylinders. Bidder, which she steals and sells to the highest bidder. Passivity, which suggests either a remarkable passivity among the, I assume, illicit, which will allow me to elicit laughter. Federation, which would be January 10, 2328 by pre-Federation reckoning. Reckon, which would be January 10, 2328 by pre-Federation reckoning. Wheeze, which would reduce Wallowitz to a wheezing 97-pound blister. Heroin, which, unless you're a heroin addict, points to sexual attraction. Fantasize, while fantasizing about. Leonard, retort, while I do not currently have a scathing retort. Outward, while maintaining an outward appearance of acceptance. Compatriot, while my compatriots are in Las Vegas. Ornithologist, while my wife was back home shacking up with a 2-bit ornithologist. Untimely, while others mourned Lucky, I realized his untimely demise. Lurk, while out there evil lurks. Serviceable, while serviceable, lacks panache. Panache, while serviceable, lacks panache. Pillage, while the others pillage the corpse. Statistical, while unlikely, it's still a statistical possibility. Despicable, while you come to grips with what a despicable thing you've done. Preside, while you preside over the kiddie table of yours. Botch, who botched my drink order. Esteemed, who can't control herself around esteemed alumni. Flog, who can't master technology should be publicly flogged. ID, who can't produce a single form of ID blouse. Last night, she pulled off her blouse and I wept. Righteous, who do with righteous condemnation. Warden, who does he think he is? A warden. Foist, Who foists unwanted facts about European pastries? Assignment. Who got a check plus on her first homework assignment? Mastery. Who have such mastery over their bodies? Contingency. Who likes a contingency plan? Sailboat. Who lives on a sailboat and likes to wear bootcut jeans? Regale. Who needs halo, when we can be regaled with the delightfully folksy tale of the whore of Omaha? Nameless. Who shall remain nameless for his own protection? Braid. Who spent last night braiding Raj's hair? Crippling. Who suffers from such crippling social anxiety? Correctional. Who walks into a women's correctional institution? Administer. Who will administer the Heimlich maneuver? Canker. Who's prone to canker sores and pink eye? Smother. You're smothering me. Economy. Whose entire contribution to the global economy? Provenance. Whose unknown provenance jeopardizes the health and welfare? Welfare. Whose unknown provenance jeopardizes the health and welfare? Cooperate. Why are you cooperating with him? Semifinal. Why did you call us during the cricket semifinals? Refuge. Why didn't you seek refuge under his roof? Reschedule. Why don't you cancel the date and reschedule? Peruse. Why don't you start perusing while I set up my notary stamp? Softly. Why is Leonard softly banging his head? Restate. All right, let me restate that. Guzzle. Why on earth would she guzzle a witch's brew? Exhilarate. This is exhilarating. Roadblock. Why did you hit a roadblock with invisibility? Invisibility. Why did you hit a roadblock with invisibility? Retrieval. Today, it's a Chinese food retrieval robot. Submerge. Will be handed off to submerged transatlantic cables. Atlantic. Will be handed off to submerged transatlantic cables. Cluster. With a cluster of dead pixels in the upper left-hand corner. Shapely. With a copy of pointy ears and shapely rears. Cursed. With a cursed maze. Made. With a drum made of his skin. Gape. With a gaping maw. Proprietor. With a less than vigilant proprietor. Backbone. With a little backbone. Magnify. With a magnifying glass. Multilingual. With a multilingual Abraham Lincoln. Nautical. With a nautical theme might be appropriate. Overlay. With a neurochemical overlay. Vaccine. With a pharmaceutical company to help develop affordable vaccines. Smallpox. With access to weaponized smallpox. Muster. With all the love I can possibly muster. Elevation. With an elevation of 49.93. Twine. With an enormous ball of twine. Dual. With dual leg leveling, which delivers stability. Glassware. With glassware washed by a man with 2 doctorates. Gasp. With its final dying gasp, it says, patrol. With me on powder patrol. Oxide. With nothing but nitrous oxide. Vehemence. With such vehemence and frequency already. Ferocity. With swift and cruel ferocity. Insulator. With the concept of topological insulators. Goiter. With the goiter on his neck. Agility. With the mental agility of Tetris into the ultimate spots. Specificity. With the non-specificity of meatloaf. Reproductive. With the reproductive sac on my upper flerman. Flashy. With your flashy clothes and your Woody Allen swagger. Fried. With your fried nuggets of chicken. Youthful. With your youthful rock and roll music. Propulsion. Without any means of propulsion. Artificially. Without artificially raising my anxiety levels. Espionage. Without committing criminal espionage. Packaging. Without his visor in the original packaging. Incur. Without incurring harm. Aptitude. Without knowing his aptitude. Spew. Without spewing a cultural stereotype. Rake. Woman could hunt geese with a rake. Exasperate. Wonder what she's exasperated about. Indecision. Would be paralyzed by indecision. Speedy. would bring this conversation to a speedy conclusion? Clockwise. Would you be open to rotating the couch clockwise 30 degrees? Delta. Would you like to get your delta wing raptor and join me? Mesozoic. Wouldn't hit the Mesozoic spot. Intrude. Wouldn't want to intrude. Beginner. Yeah. Be beginner's luck. Gradation. Wrong is an absolute state and not subject to gradation. Opt. Why? I'm gonna opt out of that one. 2. Format. Yeah. A little kid who picked the wrong format. Floodlight. Yeah. A new neighbor put in floodlights. Horizon. Yeah. But I don't see a better one on the horizon. So. Arcade. Yeah. From when we went to the arcade 3 years ago? Detention. Yeah. I didn't stay for the detention. Platypus. Yeah. I felt the same way about the platypus. Imprison. Yeah. I propose that we imprison 2 street people. Knack. Yeah. I think you have a real knack for gigolo work. Leonard. Acronym. Yeah. I'm not familiar with the acronym KMN. Barren. Yeah. If I'm going to a barren, lifeless environment. Entangle. Yeah. If you like photons and how they get entangled. Crushed. Yeah. It's a crushed velvet baby cape. Velvet. Yeah. It's a crushed velvet baby cape. Precaution. Yeah. It's just a precaution. Relaxing. Yeah. It's so nice to have a relaxing evening. Decisive. Yeah. Just so decisive. Puzzled. Yeah. Let's go with puzzled. Deprecate. Yeah. Milk duds. With their self-deprecating name. Cutback. Yeah. More cutbacks. Resign. Yeah. No. I know he resigned. Worrisome. Yeah. That's not worrisome at all. Coolness. Yeah. There's a nice coolness between us. Photographer. Yeah. We should make sure the photographer knows. Rudely. Yeah. Which he rudely announced on my flag show. Plum. Yeah. Who was plum concerned? Overdone. But that has judgmental overtones. So I'll hold that in reserve. Leisure. It's on page 3 of the Arts and Leisure section. Sluice. Show me where we put a drip tray. A sluice. Unify. Yes. And he never unified gravity with the other forces. Unsuccessful. Yes. But the actual results are unsuccessful. Relapse. Yes. But he can relapse if penny. Flinch. Yes. I flinch when you make sudden moves. But eavesdrop. Yes. I was eavesdropping. Agnostic. Yes. I'm an agnostic myself. Nanometer. Yes. I'm trying to figure out the nanometer. Sonnet. Yes. It's like that Shakespeare sonnet. Tightly. Yes. Perhaps somewhere packed tightly. Thoroughbred. Damn. You are a thoroughbred. Evenly. Yes. And evenly distributed amongst brown. White. Distribute. Yes. And evenly distributed amongst brown. White. Flammable. Isn't that flammable? Untrue. Was your statement untrue? Distort. Yet not so wide that the picture looks distorted. Yiddish. Yiddish was not spoken in East Texas. Junkyard. You and Sheldon go to the junkyard and pick up. Throttle. You are at the throttle. Knocking. You are aware that your ritualistic knocking behavior is unfit. You are deemed unfit and I hereby relieve you of your command. Menace. You are the menace of table tennis. Infatuate. You being blindly infatuated with me was the rock. Buffoon. You bloviating buffoon. Effusive. You can expect a very effusive footnote. Scribble. You can find scribbled on the wall of any men's room admit. Sure. Bourgeois. You can guess which one my bourgeois parents. Raid. You can raid my fridge anytime you want. Whack. You can still see the dent where they whacked him with it. Trustee. You can't go to the board of trustees. Slay. You can't slay the guard captain with a bronze dagger. Axle. You crank the second and third axles. Forceful. Very forceful. Finicky. You find me finicky, pedantic and annoying. Personalize. You get that these are personalized action figures. Gobble. You gobble these up like tic-tacs. Seasick. You got seasick on Pirates of the Caribbean. Accounting. You guys are drafting your fantasy accounting firms. Expressive. You have a very expressive face. Vigor. You have broad hips and a certain corn-fed vigor. Undivided. You have my undivided attention. Frisk. You have to frisk me. Gamble. You just go out there and gamble about like a bunny? Formidable. You just stand behind me and try to look formidable. Smartphone. You just use your smartphone. First hand. You know firsthand that breakups are hard. Cleanse. You know I'm doing a bowel cleanse for my colonoscopy. Nonprofit. You know that nonprofit he works with? Consonant. You know there are only 8 consonants in the Hawaiian language? Alphabetical. You know. Cooper Smoot. Alphabetical. Downward. You know. Downward facing dog. Predictable. You know. Everybody thinks I'm so predictable. Hysterically. You know. Hysterically. Misjudge. You know. I think I may have misjudged this restaurant. Hypotenuse. You know. I was blown away that the square of the hypotenuse. Pigment. You know. It can take some time for pigment to form. Unheard. You know. It's not unheard of. Housewife. You know. Italian housewives have a rule of thumb. Catalog. You know. Leonard once borrowed my Edmund Scientific Catalog. Fulfill. You know. Not everyone needs to have kids to be fulfilled. iPhone. You know. Once iPhones are invented in his universe. Operational. You know. Once we get this operational. Handwritten. You know. The last time I got a handwritten letter. Uncharted. You know. This is uncharted territory for both of us. Appease. You know. To appease Laceronius, the god of losers. Detain. You know. When they were escorting us to the detaining room. Worrying. You know. Worrying won't have any effect on what happens. Easygoing. You know. Like. Most of the time. You're the easygoing Bruce Banner. Chafe. You left out. Got chafed testicles. Repaint. You may want to repaint. Moustache. You mean a moustache? Inmate. You mean like death row inmates with nothing to lose? Racer. You mind giving me a hand with Speed Racer here? Oath. You must release me from my oath. Fatten. You need a little fattening up. Outreach. You need to design an outreach program. Dexterity. You need to roll your dexterity save. Pamper. You need to sit down and let me pamper you. Remarry. You never remarried? Haunted. You never went into that haunted house. Horizontal. You put your horizontal x coordinate here. Fend. You ran away, leaving me to fend off a family of rats. Geyser. You really uncork a geyser of nonsense. Scurvy. You scurvy dog. Glimmer. You see a glimmer of goodness in him and you only said what you said. Informational. You seem to be implying an informational back channel. Mandate. You should know that the university has mandated. Sicken. You sicken me. Inordinate. You spend an inordinate amount of time in each other's company. Clot. You still run the risk of infection. A blood clot. Enroll. You take another. You enroll full time. Cultured. You think it makes you look cultured. Tolerant. You think you're so tolerant. Trend. You trendsetter. Sanctity. You violated the sanctity of my mouth. Throaty. You wouldn't prefer a throaty chuckle? Intermission. You'll come sit with me after intermission. Fawn. You'll have nerds fawning all over you. Decibel. You'll keep the decibel level to a minimum. Panoramic. You'll see panoramic ocean vistas. Spook. You'll spook him. Screenwriter. You're a screenwriter? Taboo. You're afraid the world isn't ready for your taboo love. Classically. You're classically handsome. Founder. You're clearly listed as founder. Curriculum. You're improvising your entire curriculum. Stubbornness. You're just clinging to it out of intellectual stubbornness. Misappropriate. You're just misappropriating my understanding. Misuse. You're misusing the word hoe. Technological. You're my 15th favorite technological visionary. Parch. You're parched and weary from battle. Choir. You're preaching to the choir. Sister. Humdrum. You're right. He's a festival of humdrum chit-chat. Filly. You're right. This filly's been broken. Sophomore. You're still awake seems like quite the sophomore slump. Slump. You're still awake seems like quite the sophomore slump. Prude. You're such a prude. Frontrunner. You're the frontrunner. Tangle. You've chosen to tangle with a superior intellect you can't defeat. Allot. You've had your allotted 6 ounces. Misstate. You've misstated the atomic weight of the target. Snip. You've snipped Gene Roddenberry's vas deferens? Tart. You stupid Pop-Tart. Tardiness. Your constant tardiness. Your singing. Parse. Your difficulty in parsing American comic book idioms. Robbery. Your friend here called 911 to report a robbery. Soggy. Your Fruit Loops are getting soggy. Dilettante. Your lab is funded by some Middle Eastern dilettante? Femininity. Your lack of femininity works to our advantage. Pave. Your movies and your TV shows promised streets paved. Neurology. Your neurology department loaned me a culture of prions. Soar. Your self-confidence will soar. Alabaster. Your skin is like alabaster. Disposition. Your sour disposition will abate. Abate. Your sour disposition will abate. Abstract. Your theories are pretty abstract. Trusting. Your trusting nature coupled with your teeny tiny body. Undergraduate. Your undergraduate work must have included inflammation. Yup. There's no inflammation at all. Sheldon. Paradise. Almost paradise. Spout. And your bones will crunch and your blood will spout. Pennant. Than to fly a pennant.